Models, I'm Philip Flory. Very busy week. Obviously we had the funeral this week, which put me a little bit back if I'm honest. But what I did manage to do is get the first bits of the intruder build up, which as you can see down here. I've got some about doing the ink wash and everything else a little bit later on in the show, which will bring you up to speed if you haven't seen the full build for this one. Great kits, going together, absolutely lovely, and I have to say I am in love with these engines. These engines are absolutely wonderful. The level of detail is good. We've added a little bit of plumbing to this, so what we've done is we've sanded off all of the hosing that you can see on these, and we've gone around and we've replaced it all with lead wire, just to liven it all up. I intend to go around shortly and do the electric side of it as well, so we'll be using thinner wire to go around and just liven it all up a little bit more and making it a lot more interesting. But this particular one, what we're going to actually have is a situation of having it looking like it's in deep maintenance. So actually what we're going to do is hang one of these engines off the inner pylon of the A6 intruder itself. Apparently that's the way they did it. I've got some great reference shots showing it in a hangar with an engine and the crew working on it, hanging off of the inner pylon. Apparently is what they did, which is a brilliant idea because it's at the right height, easy to work to and everything else. Apparently there is a resin replacement cockpit coming out in December. We're not going to have that because quite frankly we're pushing on with it. I'm just about to start on the actual cockpit itself and work our way through with that one, and then we can really start to push forward with the actual build. Because of everything that's gone on, it's a little bit funny how this uploaded. So we've uploaded, there's 40 minutes in the first part, 20 minutes in part 2. It's just because I didn't want to cut away from showing you doing the metallizer work and showing you metallizer paints and sealing them and everything else. I wanted to do it in one take. That's why it's a little bit funny. You might also notice we've moved slightly over to YouTube with our videos now, so we're going to crank up the resolution. So no longer are we at 720 by 2500 bits per minute. We're going to crank it right up now, so we're going to go up to 720 by 5 megabytes. Okay, so that should be a lot better. So it's twice the quality, twice the resolution on the screen. Probably going to keep it in 720. Played around going up to 1080. I really think you need to sort of go above 10 meg, and I don't think many people's downloads will take it, and certainly my upload, it means it will take forever. At the same time, I've been transferring everything over, so all of the new basic airbrushing videos are now up on the server in YouTube format. People who have ordered Basic Airbrushing 2, no, I haven't forgot you. What I'm doing is I'm doing the Basic Airbrushing 2 is being replaced by obviously Basic Airbrushing 2014. So what I'm doing is I'm including the disc from the original one with your copies this week only. So if you've ordered until the time of this Basic Airbrushing 2, what you're going to get is Basic Airbrushing 2014 and Basic Airbrushing 2, the disc will be inside as a freebie as well, and as an apology for the delay. But obviously it's that thing, I've got the new one coming out and you're ordering it as well. I'm not sure if you think you're ordering the new one or the old one. So I'm covering both bases so you can get both. So a little bit of a freebie for you. So as you say, they will all go out on Monday though, because I need to do the artwork and everything else. So we'll get all that done over the weekend, and then certainly they will all be shipped on Monday. So Basic Airbrushing 2, Basic Airbrushing 2014, replaces it as of Monday. So there you go, up to date on all of that one. Going through all the videos at the moment, so basic modelling is up on the site now in the new format, as I work backwards. So I'm just trying to think. The Iwo Jima, which I promise I'll get on with next week, that is all in YouTube format, the first two parts of that. The Merc of a Tank, all of that is now in the new format, as is the Stealth series on the F-117 and doing flat black. That is all completely in the new format, and probably by the time you get this, hopefully most of the F4 Academy build will be in the new format as well. Obviously I can't increase the resolutions at this point because the way they were rendered for streaming before, but certainly the new videos, i.e. the intruder, will be in the new 5 meg format, which as you'll see, it's crystal clear, and to be honest is what you're watching today. So if you like what you're seeing today, that's what you're going to get from now on. A lot of talk about the old videos. Quite frankly, they're quite cringeable. I hate watching those. It's not us, it's how we were 7 years ago now, and I know a lot of you have said no, you've got to keep them because you know they're sort of nostalgic and a look back and everything else. They are, I know, but they are really cringeable. So what they're going to be is the last to be done. So I'm going to work my way backwards through all the builds. So we're going to be working from sort of present day to back there. If I include them, I don't know, we'll see how we go. We might even put them in a free area and then sort of non-members can watch them as well. But they're pretty cringeable, those old ones from back in sort of early 2000s and things like that. So not like today's. So anyway, We've had all of those bits going on and things like that. So what I'm going to do now is show you all about using the actual ink wash on the engines. Okay, so washes. Say a lot of you have asked a lot of questions about me doing these engines, about using the washes and using Indian ink with it. Now, okay, this is the full one because I found the bottle and everything else now. This is the stuff that I actually use. Now, this bottle here was about a tenner. Now, I reckon you thin this roughly around about 90% to 99%, depending on what you do, and I'll show you that bit in a minute. You can buy it in smaller bottles. Just make sure you get pure black, okay? You don't want any of the more cheaper ones because the cheaper ones tend to have different hues to them, like blues, things like that. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that because if you're doing something like on metals, like we've got here, to give them that sort of blue, it's like, I call it a hue rather than a tint because it is so difficult to see it, that actually what it does, it gives it that appearance of heat and things like that, so it can work with you, okay? Now, I haven't got any here, always the way to show you, but so perhaps we'll do that on a different show, but you can do nice little hues and tints with it as you go through. So what I'm going to do is just recap on using it and how you make up a batch. Now, obviously, you know, we do our line of washes and everything else, but if you want detailed work where you can just touch and flow, it's far better than acrylic, enamels, everything else like that. The trouble is, if you're using thinned enamel paints, thinned acrylic paints, when you're rubbing it round and putting it all around all these nice little detailed areas, especially work down here, what you end up doing is actually removing some because you strip it back. So, two ways of making this up, okay? The way that I've showed you before, okay, is simply a case of mixing round about between 1% and 10% to a thinner of choice. Now, my thinner of normal choice is to use an acrylic airbrush cleaner. The reason for using that is it breaks down the pigment of the ink completely, okay? It makes it extremely diluted, better than even thinners does and everything else. Because it's got cleaning things in there and various things that stops your needles from setting in airbrushes and stuff like that, it's got great capillary action because what this enables it to do is flow around all your areas really, really easy. You don't have to do it that way. There is another way you can actually do it, and that is to use water. This is just plain water in here. So my bottle of ink, to be honest, it's just decanted into here because it's easier. So if we show you what we do, we have a little bit of ink, okay, and literally that is it, goes in here, okay. Then you top it up with water. Now, how much you say? This is the trouble. Different inks, I find, have different types of effect. Now this one is extremely, it looks like oil when it goes on. It clings to absolutely everything. It's lovely stuff, but if you used to use it neat on your model, it will just turn it black, okay? So you need to thin it down. As I said, this is just plain tap water in here. So all we're gonna do is top it right the way up to around about something like that, which I reckon is probably 95% water now in here. Now, if you was to just use it as is and give this a mix up, it will work, but what you tend to find is it doesn't flow very well, okay? So you need something in there that's going to aid the flow. One little thing which I do recommend everybody having is some of this. Now, okay, I know it's covered in overspray, but this is a flow improver. Now, the difference with flow improvers and other type of delaying action, shall we say, is that this particular one is a little bit oily, okay, and it just slows the entire drying time down by about, they reckon, between 10 and 50%, okay. Now it's designed to be used with acrylics, okay, but I have found you can use it with pretty much anything, especially this here. So, okay, now apart from where I put the wrong lid on last time, hence whilst that's very black in there now, as you can see, it's got bubbles in the top and everything else. All we're going to do is literally just take a small amount, literally that's probably 1/2 ml into there. Let me just clean this out as I talk. Okay, what this will do now is be the flow improver to our wash. So it will help it travel further. It will slow down the drying time, which is something we'll show you about in a second. So hopefully that's a bit cleaner on there now. All right, so now we make our mix up. So you've got your basic mix it in here, which you would use down on the engines. Now, if you've seen me obviously build these engines on the site, you'll know how this works now. So basically, you just take your wash, okay, and you just go around and you place it all in, okay. and you'll find it goes off and sticks. Now if you like this and you're thinking, not exactly strong enough, it's quite light, this is where the easy bit comes in, because all you do is top up bit by bit. So I do it literally by drops. So we're just going to put 1 drop in, 2, 3 drops, okay, and you can add to it, because this stuff is easier to go by making it darker than it is to go lighter, obviously. Okay, so a couple of drops down in there like that. Bit of a mix up. Okay, and then off you go, and you can put it down. As you can see, this is probably the same as what I call my light mix, is what I used for this particular one. Okay, I have another one called a dark mix, but you just place it all on and you'll find it goes off and it flows very nicely and it settles and clings. Okay, what you don't get with it, which you get with other types of washes, is tide marks. This tends to sit down very, very nicely and goes. Now, I've got another one here called Ink Dark. This is probably twice as thick or color wise as the light one. I always use the light one first. You just zip off and go absolutely everywhere. The great thing with this is, because it has got the flow improver in there, it stays wet for quite a while, so you can actually go around and buff it off and get it off. So if you've got too much in an area and it's looking a little bit dark, you can go around and wipe it off as you go. You'll find as well, I've got it down in this ring area, you might be able to see just down here, hoping the camera will pick this up, but if you go round, you can wipe it off. Okay, now it's not going to get it all off because this is technically staining as it goes around. Okay, it's not like a clay wash or something else like that, but what you can do is take it off the high areas like here. Okay, perhaps just a little bit in there, and it's the flow improver that's doing the work here. Okay, because it's keeping it from drying out totally, and you can go round. Okay, and just do it like that. But hopefully you can see we've got this top engine looking nice, and it gives it a more what I call metal look. It's that more sort of oil grime versus than dirt grime. So it's more of an oily look than a dusty dry look that you might do with something like the clay wash, because the clay wash by its nature, when it dries very matte and dull. This always has that sort of oily look to it. And to be honest, this one here, which was done 2 days ago now, okay, is all totally dry and everything else, and as you can see, it's really nice, and it just gives it that nice sort of metal look to it and everything else. Now you can see around these rings here, these are the plastic ones in real life. All it had is a bit more, so to be honest, what I did was take a bit, drop it down on the side, okay, re-thin it, and then used it around the front and go with it. But that's the thing with using an ink wash versus other different types. Now, we spoke about it before. Yes, you could go out and buy a market brand leader one, AK's, you know, other people's one, MIGs. All their washes roughly do the same thing. It's just that this way you can mix it up very, very cheaply and easily and make up your own batch just like that without breaking the bank, and pretty much risk-free versus anything else. But as I say, you can buy this particular one, obviously this is a large amount, you can buy this one in smaller amounts. This one's by a company called Talens, or Royal Talens, okay, from the Netherlands, and to be honest, they do our pigments for our washes and things like that, hence I got that at the same time. So as you say, it's a great thing. It's used sometimes in ink, you know, for tattooing and stuff like that as well. So that's the stuff to look out with, but it's one of those things, experiment and play with it. But the big thing you'll find is, if you've watched this particular clip, you'll see it dries extremely light. Okay, so don't worry about it too much. You put it on and you think, oh, that looks a bit heavy, it's gone a little bit over the top. It will fade back. So when you look at these two side by side, you might be able to see this one over here on the right is a lot darker than the one on the left, but it is pretty much all in scope and things like that. But it was a nice way of doing it and a nice way of showing it, and hopefully, you know, you get a bit of an insight into it. So if you wanted to, you can use acrylic flow improver, which I do recommend. It's great stuff. Use it for your airbrushing as well. I use it especially when it's warm. A couple of drops in that if you're doing things like pre-shading, post-shading. If you ever have the thing where your airbrush is spitting, okay, or stop and starting, a drop of that, one drop into a 5mm color cup, solves all your problems. It will keep it from drying out on the needle, because that's what's happening. It dries out slightly on the needle, you get a little bit of back build up, it seals off, and that's it, and you're pumping away and it's just air coming out. You brush off the end of your actual needle, you'll find your flow will come through. If you're using this, all this does is stop it drying on the end of your needle, because obviously by its nature it's like a giant hairdryer, if you like, so it's drying the paint as it's blowing it out. This just keeps it wet for a few moments longer, which stops you getting build up on the end of your needle. So there we go, two things, flow improver and using ink washes. Okay, so there we go. Hope you found that sort of interesting and brings you up to speed on that one. Anyway, I've been talking about it for the last 2 weeks. I did get hold of a Star Destroyer, a very large Star Destroyer. And obviously it's been making its way over, as most of you know. And then I got one of those nice letters from Royal Mail, and I thought I had it here, but I must have it up in the office. That basically turns around and says that, yes, we have your parcel, Mr. Flory, no problem at all. If you want it, you're going to have to pay us £70. Okay, yes, I got stung by customs. No, it's not nice, but at least it wasn't the full whack. So, never mind. But anyway, lo and behold, you can do the thing online now where you say, okay, and I paid for it online, which is pretty straightforward. You just go to Parcel Force and you do the redeliver thing, pay your 70 quid, and then you can arrange a date for it to be delivered. So I've actually had it delivered today, which is Thursday, and it turned up. And yes, I was expecting a large lorry, if I'm honest. I was expecting, I don't know, a very big box. Wasn't expecting something like this. Yes, this is it. So I know what you're thinking. That's quite a small box. Is it that big? Well, this is what I was thinking as well. So I was a little bit worried. Also, the thing is, if you notice the box, let's just say isn't the best, okay? So especially when you've paid, quite frankly, a small fortune for this, you know, I was sort of hoping that it would be slightly better packaged. Anyway, I have opened it, obviously. Yeah, I'm not that much of a martyr. So this is it. Okay, now I have been through it before, but this is roughly how it turned up. So we have got 30-year-old bubble wrap on the top. Right, so if I just move the outer camera out a bit, because you're going to need a bit of that. Okay, if we just turn that one on. We're all still on. Okay, so in here we have the instructions. So here we are. This is it. This is all you get, is one piece of paper. And as you can see, there's not a lot to it. So I'm thinking, really, is that it? You know, let's hope it's little. So it talks about all the little things on here. So it says it's got the emergency engines, it's got the ion engines and the things, but it doesn't say put A to B or anything else like that. So basically they are a complete waste of space. So anyway, let's have a see and see what 600 quid gets you. So down in here, we find this. Now, hopefully the camera's got all of this in, roughly. As you can see, it's pretty packed in here and there's quite a lot to it. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop it down on the floor and I'll get them up bit by bit to show you, which is probably easier. The other thing you have to notice, this is very heavy because it is quite solid resin. So, first up, we get this. Now we've got this a bit smaller, I can probably drag this in just a touch more. There we go. So what we actually have here is the engines, okay? We have various things down here. This is the radars and all the areas like that. We have those very, very nice, I'll tell you what, I'll be slightly naughty and we'll get this cut open. Look at my other blades. Okay, so what we'll do is, if we do it this way, we can keep it somewhat together. So these here are the reactors that go on top of the bridge. Okay, and as I say, the big thing you notice about this, the kit itself is extremely old, but the quality of the actual casting and everything else is absolutely exquisite. So if we just have it on here, as you can see, this is one of those ones, and they're slightly off center as well where they sit in, and you have got little pegs that obviously are only going to fit in one way as well, but you can see, very, very nicely done. And I'm amazed they're all still one bit, really. It just shows it must be good resin on this. Okay, and then down in here, we actually have, I think that's the antenna array for the top. And to give you an idea of how big this thing is, this tiny little guy, literally just here, as you can see, is the actual Imperial shuttle, which is a beautifully little cast thing and everything else. So we've got a little bit of photo etch down in there. And then down in here we've got various other things. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop one engine out just to have a look. But you can see here the quality of the casting is absolutely fantastic. In fact, I'm amazed how good it is. It is absolutely second to none. It's actually the detail, even the plugs and things like that have all been tidied up. I've got no bubbles. You know, usual thing is if you haven't worked with resin before, the big thing you have to know and expect is warpage is one. You're always going to get a little bit of warpage because it's very hard to keep it straight. Air bubbles, okay, this day and age they use vac chambers and things like that. You still get air bubbles in even like that, okay, so you're going to need a little bit of filler and everything else like that. And the third thing to know is sometimes you do get mismolds and bad pulls, as we call them, and things like that. Now generally that's stopped in quality control, but because this is an older kit, you know, technically that bit still goes on. So anyway, my first catastrophe when I was having a look is this part. Now this is the rear engines section, or one of them, as you can see down here. Again, beautiful detail in this one, okay, and unfortunately this bit broke off, okay, which, as I say, I'm not going to harp on about the packaging, but it could have been better. But the great thing with resin, it is very, very easy to fix, so that is quite an easy fix, okay. So there's that one, and then this is the other side of what it should look like. So when you have both, you're going to have your top and bottoms something like this, as it says, if you can remember which way they are. All right, very, very nicely done. So if I remember rightly, in fact I don't want to play with this one too much, but it's going to go in there something like this, okay. It gives you an idea of how big this is going to be because we've got a bit to go on each side yet. Again, if we can get it all in, but you can see the level of detail is absolutely phenomenal. Beautifully done, beautifully cast, and to be honest I haven't seen any bad bits yet. So this is a bit from the upper superstructure. Again, as you can see, the detail absolutely fantastic. Let me just move this around just a little bit. As you can see, to give you an idea how detailed this is, hopefully the side camera can lock in, but there we go, look at all that detail. Absolutely fantastic work, all of that beautifully pulled. And this is the thing when you're working with resin. A lot of people are terrified about resin. Two things. One, the cost. Yes, you're always going to pay a fortune for resin. Good quality resin though, I think is worth every penny. In some ways it's easier to work with. Like for instance, this bit here has broken off, okay? Now if this was plastic, the chances are it wouldn't have just sheared off. It would have bent in some way. So you've got to try and straighten it out. Because it's resin, a 2-second bit of super glue and you won't even know it's got a join, okay, and a break on there. You can easily strengthen it up on the inside. Sanding, flash and small parts like that is very easy with resin. It's very, very straightforward. Anyway, so next sections up we have here is the upper bridge and the side bridge as well. So these are all the sections that are going to go onto the top part of it. Okay, I'm just seeing if it has or hasn't. But this is for the top and the front areas as they all go on this particular one as they go through. Again, the quality of the moulding, we just whip one of these out because we can. Okay, just be careful that you don't lose any little bits in here, because these tiny little bits that might come off like this, okay, could be something important. I'm not saying they are, it could be just a little bit, but the chances are they are something that's come off, and as I said, a touch of glue and we're good to go. But there we go, this is some more of that detail that's down there on the side. Absolutely amazing, it is beautifully cast. And it was the big thing when I first got this one out. I was expecting it to be detailed because that's what everyone says. It is the most detailed Star Destroyer that's available. What I wasn't expecting though is this level of detail. So we have here another one of the said broken bits off, but again, it's not a problem. We can pop that one on. And then we have another part. So what you're actually getting here, if you haven't realised already, you're getting the upper surfaces. This is the top of the Star Destroyer as it comes through, okay? This is the block bit that sits on the top. Huge already, I know. And then these sections here are the bits that are going to go on the front as it works its way through. We have here, this is going up to the top island, I do believe. And then we start getting into these huge plates. Now these plates here are off of the I've got to guess where this one is. This is, I think, must be the bottom. Is it the bottom or the top? One of them. But we got lots of these plates which makes up the surface. And what you have to remember is somebody back in the 70s went around, and all of this is plasticard bits put down minutely. And what's really interesting is when you look around all of these, I don't know how well the camera picks them up, but sometimes they're not square. They're slightly off. And you can imagine the nightmare that went on with this is they probably started out and they were going, okay, you know, we've all done it. You get your plastic card, you've chopped it up onto a lot of bits, and you're going around trying to make a random pattern and make it look nice, especially because it's sort of, you know, a spaceship. Nobody's probably seen this before or anything else. So they've literally gone around putting all of these on, and then you've got tiny, tiny little ones. And I just drop the top cam in because I really want you to see the detail and the work that went into the original of actually going around and putting these tiny little ones all in here and building up the levels as well. So actually what you've got a situation is something like here is obviously one level's gone down and then they've glued another one on top, and then another, and then another. Okay, and they kept the geometry of all of them going in there. Obviously some parts are thicker plasticard than other, but this is literally made up with, obviously full rescribed in here to start with. You can slightly see even down here, which is lovely, a tiny little bit of overscribe. So you know that bit where you don't stop in time? This has got it as well, okay? And as I say, there's a couple of tiny little chips missing off of here, these little squares, unfortunately where it's rubbed together, but we can actually replace these if we wanted to go around and do them all. But it is lovely to see that, you know, when you look at these things of how they're put together, it's very basic, okay, but with the effect when you get over the top of it and seeing all of this put down, you know that somebody's taken the time and glued every single one of these into position to make the master. Then obviously this was all molded off of it as you go right the way around. And as you can see, it's very simple. You see, we can all do this. So we've got a little bit of warpage we were talking about down here, because we know this set is actually slightly bent. If you look at it, we move the top out, if we just have a quick look at it in close up, as you can see, again, some more of this nice work going over. As you can probably see, we've got a little bit of warpage here. It's not, we know it bends down, but it's a little bit out of shape, but I'm thinking it won't be a problem. The other thing you notice is on the inside, this is so thick, all of this, but it's the usual thing, and I'll be showing this, hot water, you can maneuver it slightly to the right area, just little bits as you go right the way through and everything else. So we've got the other plate for the other side, as you can see here, so that's just going to be a mirror copy. And the interesting thing is when you look at both of them, it is actually a different one. These aren't the same. It's not like they made one and mirrored it. It is completely separate, because the bricks, as I call them, or all the layers, are totally different. They are a rough copy, but they're not exactly the same as you work all the way through. They've used one side as a guide, but they are not identical. Okay, so we've got that. Then you've got these guys, which are absolutely great, which is where we've got one of these brakes. This here is the side area. Again, you can see the level of detail running all down these. Again, it's slightly warped, it's slightly bent up. I don't know how well it'll show on the camera, but as you might be able to see here, it's going up. I don't know if it actually does on the real thing. I don't think it does, because it seems to be straight then lifting up. But you can see we've got all this level of detail down on the inside. Now if this was a plastic kit, you would spend a millennium at putting this all in, because it's just little areas like this thing in here. As you can see, absolutely phenomenal detail into that. And unfortunately this is where we've got another break, because this one here is off of here and has sheared off, but again it should go in there no problem at all. It should be quite an easy fix. Right, then we get to the interesting bits. Well, sort of. This is where the guns are on the side. So this is the rear part of the actual Star Destroyer. So you've got the front end going onto it over here. Then you've got the rear part coming on here. Then obviously you've got the island on the top. So this section here, this entire thing will come along and will sit on the top of this up here as it goes through, to give you an idea of the size of this thing. Then it'll be again over. But again, it gives you a good idea and an impression on the inside. So we've got some of this work here showing this ribbing, which will hopefully give us the strength to actually come through. And also you can see the little tapes in here. This was obviously a separate part down in this one as well at some point, but now it's been joined on. And then we have this here. Now this is the top bridge area, and again, the level of detail going right the way through. We've actually got the bridge right at the very front there. Absolutely exquisite detail. As I say, I'm losing the light a little bit. We're filming this in the dark now, but as you say, absolutely beautiful. So this will fit on that part we showed earlier and drop down. Then we have, still going with it, we're starting to get near the front now. So actually what we've got here is the front of the Star Destroyer, if we can get it all in. So it'll be something like this. So as you can see, this is the area to the front, this is the top, which then goes onto the front of the other ones, and then they're going to come back here, okay, and be all off of it. Again, looking at the level of detail, looking at the scribing work that went into this, and little things, which is quite nice, which I love pointing this out because it's great. Okay. So, again, let's pick out the bits that are slightly wrong. Rescribing doesn't go all the way to the end, does on this one and drops back. Little things like that I absolutely love, because I know somebody spent an entire, life's creation putting this thing together and all the rest of it. But you can see it's slightly not as sharp, this top part, than it is to the bottom one. I think it's obviously where it's obviously been the mould. I don't know which number this one. I'm led to believe they only made 100 of these. But you can see, absolutely beautiful. The level of detail is better than any resin I've ever seen before by 100%. And even if you're comparing this to your best Tamiya and things like that, this is far superior, the actual thing. And considering it's resin, is quite amazing. So what we have down here, we've got other parts of the sides of the superstructure and everything else like that. But what I want to do is show you the bottom. So this is the bottom to the part we just showed. So down here we've got the inner, I think this is the TIE Fighter deck launch area, versus we've got the main pool area itself. And I do believe, if we get this right the right way, I'm not 100% sure which way this one goes. So we've got a little bit of tidy up to do on this one, but this is the main area where the said blockade runner ends up, down in there. So I'm not sure if it's that way around or that way around. No, it must be the other way. But so you've got a little bit of clean up to do. We've got to take these tabs out and work our way through. But as you can see, levels of detail is absolutely brilliant. It is absolutely stunning. Let's say when this is in here like that, it really is nice. So there you go. That's what you get. Some of the best resin and the sharpest pulls I've ever seen out of resin in my entire life. Obviously we've still got a lot more bits to go down here, so we've got other sides, okay, and we've got more details. These are the, to be honest, the slightly better ones. This is the system that goes between the two sandwiches of the layers all the way down there, and again you've got tiny little chips out of it, which obviously a lot of that to do with transport and packaging. But again, if you were trying to do this, the only way you could do this realistically is with photo etch down in here, because getting in here with plastic would be a nightmare. But knowing somebody did go down here with plastic many years ago, and it is the thing, apparently if you look around you can see all the parts from everything else. I know, like with the Atat Walker, it's the Pegasus engine from the Revell kit, the 124th Harrier, that's what they use, that's what's underneath for the leg areas, if you're ever wondering. I've seen that before. But also apparently down in here, a lot of these parts are all from ships, from 1/700th scale ships, things like that. And I'm imagining like things like these tubes and things down here are probably gun barrels and things like that. So it is amazing to know where some of these parts have come from. You ship guys will probably spot things on this a lot better than I will. But again, absolutely exquisite detail. So the plan, well, now it's here, is that we're going to panic. First of all, I want to get the ship out of the way. Secondly, I'm going to play with a few little ideas. I'm playing with ideas like obviously the best way to light this. Now, are we going to go the old school way and go fibre optics and run 1,000,000 fibre optics through this entire thing? Are we going to buy, there's custom engine glows for this particular kit you can buy. They're not cheap from the US, but they do look absolutely stunning. Are we going to fit that to it? Are we going to try something a little bit different, where I am going to coat the entire inside of this in a very thick plastic black liner, if you like, and then we're going to put holes through it, so the lights come through, which is something that happened in the later Star Wars films. They were plate aluminium, this was, so what they'd actually do is it would have, they put holes in it and they put a massive great light inside it which would then illuminate out. That's how the later ones were done. Or are we going to pick something in between? Are we going to have some LED? Are we going to do some a different way? We've also got to think about how this thing is actually going to go onto a stand, because obviously it needs to go on a stand in some particular way. So from an engineering point of view, it's going to need to have some type of internal structure to make sure that the weight is distributed out, because as you may have noticed in all of this we have no internals. It is literally hollow completely. There is other versions of this out there that are sort of what we call garage kits from it. And they have internals into them, so I might make something up in sort of 2mm plastic card on the inside just to help hold it all apart. And certainly from we're having, I presume it's going to be acrylic rods are going to be holding this thing up, and things like that. The wiring of it, how we're going to have the mains power coming in and out, all those little things are things I'm going to have to think about and go through over the next few weeks before we get this one started. But it is here. I am glad it's here. It's probably, as I said, not only is definitely now the most expensive kit we've done, and it's easily the biggest, okay, it's also probably going to be the most complex in the way it's actually going to go with the lighting of it, and how it's going to be on the stand and everything else like that. So it's all going to take a little bit of playing with, which I hope you'll follow me through the entire build. But I'm really excited about this one. For the first time, it's not going to be about the painting and weathering, it's going to be more about actually it all going together. The painting and weathering is going to be a doddle on this. It's going to take its time, but it should be a doddle with it. But everything else, so we just got to do some little things with engines. But apart from that, I'm pretty much out of the box for the actual area itself. I might just replace a few little bits that have been knocked. Some of the little the little resin details I can see have been chipped away and things like that. But apart from that, it looks to be a stunning build, and I hope you're going to enjoy the build along with me. Sorry, still looking over it. Still trying to picture how it's all going to go. God. Anyway, so there we go. That's really about it for this week. We had the modern Armour SIG finish last week. So we're going to be having a look at that as we leave you today. Some great work in that one. Well done to everybody. You all did an amazing job with that one. Sorry it's a bit shorter this week, but as you can imagine, I had quite a bit on this week to sort out and everything else. Next week we are totally back to normal in a big and better way. So we're going to be carrying on with the Intruder. Guaranteed to get you the cockpit section up on the Intruder, probably because I'm halfway through, so I know. We're going to do a little bit more work on the ship, and we're going to get that one through and sorted out. We're going to get more videos all sorted up onto the site. Various discussions going on in the forum at the moment about SIGs and group builds, stuff like that. I will delve into that probably on Monday, Tuesday, speak to the team, and we're going to work out exactly, because some of you come up with some great ideas which have thrown the schedule completely in the air, because your ideas are better than ours. So we'll be changing those, and we've got some great work coming out there. So until next week, everybody, happy modelling, take care. And if you're in the US, I hope you're enjoying your Thanksgiving and eating far too much and everything else like that. So until next week, everybody, happy modelling, take care.